Hey guys, I'm Liz. This is my Coleman CPX6 camping fan. Here are all the different tests and experiments that I did with not just the fan function, but also the inbuilt lantern function. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly why you should never, ever buy this fan. But first, the unboxing. I picked up this fan from REI because I couldn't find it on Amazon, and I'll show you what it looks like brand new and unopened when you first get it, just in case you want to see what it's like. Out of the box, here's everything that I got. That's the empty box there, and here we have the fan itself, a user guide, a metal plate here, and also a magnetic hook here to hang the fan up, and that's everything I got. This CPX6 has two different fan modes. One is a high mode and the other is a low mode. The button here to the right, which also has a fan icon on it, controls these different modes. Press this button once for the high mode, another time for the low mode, and another time if you want the fan to turn off. Now, what are the fan speeds for both these different modes? To test for this, I got this mini anemometer. When I turn the fan on to the first high mode and when I hold the anemometer right in front of the fan, after the reading stabilizes, which takes a few moments, this high speed gives me a reading of about 3.7 meters or 12.1 feet per second. Notice that it's pretty inconsistent as well, flip-flopping from between 3.2 to 4.4 meters per second. After that, when I turn the fan to the low mode, I get a reading of about 2.8 meters or 9.2 feet per second. I also wanted to measure the airflow distance, so I sat in my room with no wind at all. I put the anemometer up close to the fan and I slowly increased the distance from the fan. Then I located the exact spot where the meter hit a zero reading, and this is it right here. This spot is only about 21 inches or 1 3/4 feet or just half a meter away from the Coleman fan. That's the Coleman fan right there, 21 inches away, running on the high speed, and it can't even turn the blades of the meter. And what about the low speed? That's even worse, with a max airflow distance of just 10 inches or 25 centimeters away from the fan. Here's what it looks like when I tested it. This is the 10-inch airflow distance. To test for the noise level, I also got a sound level meter. Here's the base sound level with the fan turned off, and the reading comes in at about 41 decibels. Now, when I turn the fan on to its first high speed, the sound meter shoots up to a whopping 61 decibels. And on the second low speed, the sound meter goes down to about 55 decibels. I'll show you actual clips of exactly how they sound like later, so do stick around for that. The only power source of this Coleman fan is its D batteries. The battery compartment is at the back. First, squeeze in on these two back latches and the compartment will pop out of the fan. Then squeeze this other latch here and it will pop open. At the bottom, you'll see the plus and minus sign, so you know exactly how to insert the 4D batteries. After doing so, just snap the lid shut. To put the compartment back into the fan, align the silver springs on the fan to the silver plates on the compartment and just snap it back in. For the fan run times, here's what the official specs say. You get about 10 hours on the high speed and 30 hours on the low speed. And of course, I tested this using my own batteries, and here's what I found. For the high fan mode, I got about 25 hours of the max 3.7 meters per second speed, and suddenly, right after this, the fan speed dropped down to 1.5 meters or 5 feet per second. This is such a slow fan speed, I couldn't even really feel anything at all, which is why I couldn't just add it to the runtime. It kept slowing down, and at the 38-hour mark, the fan blade stopped moving and it was completely flat. And for the low fan mode, I got about 35 hours of usable fan speeds, which slowly dropped from the max of 2.8 meters per second down to 2.2 meters per second by the 35-hour mark. And by the 40-hour mark, the speed slows down so much that my anemometer doesn't even detect a wind speed. The blades only stop moving at about the 45-hour mark. And if you're wondering what batteries I use to give me a longer lifespan than expected, there are these Energizer Max batteries. This is the only brand of batteries that I use. Next up, let's talk about the lantern function. This button here to the left, which has a sun icon on it, controls the different lantern modes. Press this button once for the bright mode, another time for the low nightlight mode, and another time if you want the lantern to turn off. The only info that I could find on the lumen output is that it puts out 99 lumens, which doesn't sound accurate in the least. So to give you the info that you need, I'm going to use this lux meter, and let's first test it on the bright mode. On this mode, I got a lumen output of whopping 470 lumens, much higher than what the official specs say it is. And on the low nightlight mode, I got a lumen output of only about 150 lumens, so I guess the 99 lumen output isn't all that crazy. As for the light quality, there are these 5mm LED lights inside the lantern. There are 4 of these, and I found these to be super harsh on the eyes. There's no frosting and no light diffusion on this lantern, and I hated using this. And here's what the Coleman looks like hanging at the top of my tent at night. I don't know if you can tell on the video, but it's too dang bright and really hurt my eyes. The good thing is that it lights up the tent very nicely. Even when I was sitting at the edge of my tent, I could still see every single word on this piece of paper very clearly, so it's great for reading or playing cards if you like to do stuff like that. When you look up at the lantern, though, it's so glaring even when I'm lying right at the bottom of the tent. The lantern on the low nightlight mode lights up the tent nicely as well. I can still see the paper very clearly from the edge of the tent. And from the outside of the tent, this is what the lantern looks like on both the high brightness mode and low nightlight mode. And also, here's what the Coleman looks like hanging from a tripod, but without a tent, just in case you want to check it out. Now, how long can the lantern run for? Well, I don't think Coleman says anything about their run times, but typically they use less battery than the fan functions. For the bright lantern mode, I got a runtime of about 100 hours on the max 470 lumens, and it started going downhill from there. At about the 150 hour mark, it just became a tiny 0 lumen nightlight. But because this was such a small lumen output, 0 lumens, it literally ran for another 700 plus hours after that. I got tired of waiting, so here's where I had to cut the test off. As for the low brightness mode, I got a solid runtime of about 300 hours or so on the 150 lumen output before the light started getting dimmer and eventually hit the 0 lumen mark at about the 400 hour mark. It kept running after that for ages, and I cut the test off here again. Now, what about if both the lantern and fan are running together? With the high fan running with low light brightness at the same time, I noticed only a very slight decrease in runtime. At the 25 hour mark, the light went off and the fan blades slowed to a crawl. It only stopped turning at about the 30 hour mark. And with the brighter setting, I noticed about a 10% decrease in runtime from 25 hours to 22 hours. At about the 22 hour mark, the light went off and the fan blades crawled, and everything went flat a few hours later. That's roughly what you need to know when using both the fan and lantern together. This fan has a thin metal handle at the back. You can use this to carry it around, or even use your own carabiner to hang it up at the top of the tent. Coleman actually provides a magnetic carabiner hook too, plus this magnetic plate. To set this up, just put the plate on one side of the tent, the hook on the other, and align the magnetic parts together. It'll clip together and holds quite firmly because it's quite strong. Then hang the lantern up by pushing the handle into the carabiner loop, and that's it. Now to remove the plate and carabiner, you gotta twist the plate 90 degrees and then pull it off. There's a stand here too at the back of the fan. Just pull it out if you want to use it and crack it back in place if you don't want to use it. I couldn't find a waterproof rating for this fan, so I rain tested it myself through 30 minutes of moderate rain, and I'll put some shots of the rain testing on the screen here for you to check out. Both the fan and the light functions are still working, but the battery compartment was pretty soaked with water, so I don't think it would have been able to take much more rain than what I put it through. This fan has a 1-year warranty. It says so right here on the box when you buy it. As for weight, this fan came in at about 25.2 ounces, which is about 714 grams if you need that conversion. That's without the D batteries. With the 4D batteries though, the total weight comes in at about 1.3 kilograms or about 45.2 ounces. The pack size of this fan comes in at about 10 by 9.5 by 5 3/4 inches, which is about 25 by 24 by 14.6 centimeters if you need a conversion as well. And the size of the blades comes in at about 7.5 inches in diameter, which is about 19 centimeters. As for pros, I think the only one is that the magnetic plate and clip is actually quite ingenious. I really like that I could hang it up anywhere on the tent, down low if I want it, or up high above the door. There's a lot of versatility when hanging this around. I could also just treat it like any other normal hook and hang anything else I wanted, like another fan or another lantern if I wanted. One tiny con here is that it leaves black marks on the tent after doing so, but it's not a super big deal to me. But here's where we get into these super big cons. First up, there's not a lot of fan speeds to pick from, just two different speeds, which are 2.8 meters per second or 3.4 meters per second. On top of that, the airflow distance is just downright terrible. Remember the distance test that I showed you back in test number 4? That was using an anemometer. It's even worse when I tried to test it with a windmill. I turned the Coleman fan on to the high fan mode, and it couldn't even spin a windmill unless it was right in front of the fan. And when the fan was hanging at the top of the tent, I couldn't feel the airflow at all because you literally have to be right up close to it to feel anything at all. Forget trying to cool down an entire 6-person tent. You can't even cool down a 4-person or even a 2-person tent with this fan. Why is it so bad? I suspect it's because of the foam blades. They're supposed to be soft to the touch, but because these blades are so flippy floppy, they honestly don't push air as well as other fans that have plastic or metal blades. Another big con is that this fan is for tabletop placement only on completely flat ground. The stand is so puny and so tiny that I couldn't even get it to stand up on the tent floor, which is just slightly uneven ground. Yet another big con is that it's such a noisy fan. Check out what it sounds like when I hold it up to my mic right now. And if you pick the fan up and hit the blades, it'll cut into the front plastic here and gives off a super loud and super annoying clicking sound. Check out what it sounds like. Also, did I mention that the light is terrible on the eyes? Yeah, you can check out tests number 8 to number 11 on this too. Battery life is inconsistent as well, and I went through that in tests number 7, 12, and 13. This fan also takes 4D batteries, which are expensive. These range from $1 to $2 per battery, which means this fan will use up $4 to $8 every single time you use it. Overall, I think all the tests I did in this video will show you exactly why I hated this fan, and I'm honestly just going to trash it after making this video. I'll never use it again because I have way too many other good fans that I can rely on, and you can check out this video on the screen here to see what I'd recommend instead. Thank you for watching this, and I'll see you in that one.